Welcome to Derby Chat with All For Him Racing Videos, where we sit down and chat with those making an impact in the sport of demolition derby. And right now I get to sit with my friend Mark Elliott, and we get to talk about 2023 Unified Point Series, the results. 4 years. I remember when we were sitting on that mountaintop having a conversation about this idea that you had. Actually, the first memory I had was Florida. If you remember, you were announcing down there, you're like, hey, I got this idea for a point series. What do you think about this? And you're pulling up the spreadsheet on the computer, and I just remember just having a moment of awe, just like, wow, I've never seen something like that in our sport before. So how do you feel 4 years?
Great question, Alex. What a powerful way to start, man. Because I always say I'm so thankful for people that remember things that I don't. And like the mountaintop I remember, the Florida I don't. So thank you for kind of taking me back to that place. But in business, I think a lot about 5-year, 10-year, 15, 20, and some of those ceilings, which is why I have so much respect for people that's been in the sport a long time and it has broken through those ceilings. Mm-hmm. And it really didn't hit me until this year to think about this year's going to be our 5-year ceiling. So yeah, year 4 prepared us for that, I think, and going to make some bold changes. But to think that we're already talking about that 5-year ceiling and then make me reflect on the actual announcing, which was a key pillar in starting this, looking at the 10-year, that is, it blows my mind, honestly, man.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like anything else that has morphed over time. You've made adjustments and changes, and as a derby driver, as well as anything else, you understand that there's just factors and variables that you can't control that happens out there on the track, whether it's promoters, other competitors. And I think you've made some changes this year that will address some of that and just kind of also let it happen, because derby is derby at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Makes me think about the term let go of the vine. And I never looked at things like I just had to be there. I had to do this, I had to do that, because I didn't trust other people. It just felt like the right thing. But I think you said it in a way that I think things are going to happen, and they're going to happen whether we're there, we're not there. There's just things that happen in the sport. I think it all funnels back to passion, the good and the bad. And there's a lot of us that are pretty passionate, and sometimes on the bad side of that, things could get a little crazy sometimes. So you just got to keep moving forward.
Yep. So how many drivers did you have competing this year, Mark?
Well, we had 52. So the significance of that is in past times that you and I have got together and chatted, we've talked about numbers in the 500s and on somewhere around there. And the reason it's 52 is because on year 4, we actually created a driver registration. They got some apparel, they got some perks on points. And it really just honed in on who really wants to be a part of this. I had to be pretty vulnerable to do that, because there was that chance that it would have been 6 people. And, nobody wants to think that that's the only amount of people that's interested in something that they're doing. So I told myself, man, if we could get 20, like I thought 20 could make it pretty interesting. Yeah. And when we got 52, I honestly couldn't believe it. So hopefully we can achieve that this year and some.
Now, we'll get into the changes here in a second, but what was the feedback from the drivers as far as having that the point of entry that was not there before, where you could just show up and be able to score points? Do you think that changed the dynamics of the show? Do you think that had an impact on how people strategized?
I think it did, because what being a registered driver did for them is gave them a 2-point registered driver bonus point. So if you and I went to Sturgis this weekend and I registered today and I won a class and you went to Sturgis and won a class, but you did not register, you're still in the Unified Point Series. But you got 10 points and I got 12. And I know we'll get into it, but the difference in second and third place this year was decided by 1 point, and that was a $5,000 difference.
Yep. So those 2 points really make a difference at that point in the process, for sure.
Yeah, and it just says I'm committed to doing this. It tells our sponsors I want to be a part of this, and there's it's got to be a win-win, right? So the win for the driver is the bonus points.
So, what would be some advice you might give to somebody who's looking to get involved into the point series this year?
From a driver standpoint, or promotion, or both?
Well, let's start with the drivers first.
Drivers, I feel like it's natural, so this will help us get into something. Maybe it saves us time down the road, but one of our changes that we made is that I'm only going to take their highest 7 scores. And so somebody that wants to get involved and be a registered driver, the first thing that I'm going to tell them is it's not for everybody. I don't just solicit just to have as many people as we can. Really, the question that I ask is, if you look at our schedule, which is now pushing 60 shows, which is double what we've ever had, do you think we're going to cross paths 5 times or 4 times or 10 times? And then do you derby to win? Is your goal to place as high as you can? Because that's not everybody's goal, and to each their own.
Right.
But if the answer to their question is, well, yeah, I look at your schedule and yeah, we're going to cross paths 5 or 6 times or 10 times, and hell yes, I want to win, then my answer would be yes. It's worth making the small $125 investment, because if you place top 3 at half of those shows, then you're in the conversation.
Yeah.
It's almost like a hand of poker, and you got 7 cards. How high are your cards?
Okay. I definitely agree with that for sure. And I'm curious because each year when you make these changes, the strategies change. And I'm really curious to see with now that and we'll get to that there is a lot more shows available to drivers now. So you're going to have maybe more strategic choices of shows versus just hitting every single one on your schedule, because that's where that's their chance to score as many points as possible. If you already can get your 7, it may change the strategies a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and whether do you want to get there quick or do you want to get there more slow and steady? I think it'll be kind of interesting.
Well, the interesting part about that, Alex, is, including me, nobody knows what there means, because, I could run and I could win my first 7 shows and just be right out there in the front. But because of the point structure, as in past years, a win here might be worth 10 points and a win here might be worth 20.
True.
You would have to win maximum points at every 7 shows to have a royal flush, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know what the strategies look like. And I think just like in all years past, I think there's people that either maybe don't know about it or don't care so much about it until they start having a hot year. And then it's like, well, heck, I'm already going here. And
well, that's the story that Shipley gives for when he won the first time, the season of doing the points. And that was, he wasn't even really interested in it, but once he started winning and getting the points, yeah, heck yeah, let's do it.
I'll beat this dead horse. I'll beat this drum over and over, and I'll continue to repeat. I am not soliciting that Bob Whitaker is a part of the point series. It's a 100% fact. If this was the recipe last year, he's in the conversation with Butch, because we crossed paths so many times and he did so well. And if we cross paths this year and he has a 7 out of 7 royal flush and it's not for him, I'm cool with that too. I just use him as an example because there's just certain people, especially when we start getting into new places, there's certain people that are just at the bottom every time unless something happens. And if they run enough, they're going to be at the bottom enough to be in the conversation.
Yeah. I'm really curious to see how that changes things. I think how'd you arrive at the number of 7?
Full transparency. A great friend even turned me on to the idea about, I think it's racing, like dirt track, that there's a limited amount, and so you want it to be challenging, but then you also want it to be intriguing. And there's probably a lot of people over the past 4 years that maybe said that'd be pretty cool. Not for me, because not only do they not want to run 30 shows in a summer, they don't want to be told what 30 shows they've got to run, because if anybody's like me, and I know I'm not alone, the wind blows today and I'm going here, and it blows tomorrow and I'm going there.
Yeah.
And if those shows aren't on the schedule, but you're part of the conversation and you're going after it, then I've seen drivers have to pass up places that they would like to run because they felt obligated to go to BF wherever, so at minimum they could get those 2 registered driver bonus points and maybe some more. So
that's an interesting point. I never really thought of it like that.
I can promise you 2 things. One, I don't think of everything in the drivers. There's always something I didn't think of. And 2, my brain it doesn't quit. I think about every scenario I could possibly think of before I press play on something. So there's never a decision that's like, hey, let's try this. Usually they get shut down because of, out of 20, there's 3 that just I would not want to have to be put in that position. So definitely there's so much thought that gets put into it, and there's never enough thought.
Well, let's shift some gears here and then go back to the promoter side of things. So if somebody is a promoter wanting to get involved, I guess what would you see are some benefits for them, and then just also how do they actually go about doing it?
Awesome question. So I'll touch on the benefits, because when a promoter reaches out or we have the conversation, I always tell them, I can't promise you what you're going to benefit from this. I don't know if there's going to be 3 more cars at your show or 30, but there's a good chance that there may be somebody, at least one person at your show that maybe would never have been there because of this. I don't think it's 30. I think it's 1 or 2 or 3. But I also tell them to think of it like an opportunity for the drivers that do support them. Because if at their show or their shows, they allow that driver to score points, it's like taking care of your people in a way. So like I try to stress, like, if you're looking for what you're going to get from me, I'm probably going to disappoint you. It has to almost come from a place of what you did for your drivers.
That makes total sense, because you're giving them an opportunity to be part of something that, if you were just in the normal day-to-day from a Derby season standpoint, you wouldn't be able to offer to them. And I like it. How about not the promoters, but how about sponsors? Because we've got this pretty awesome big banner you've set up behind us here of all these people who have stepped up this past season to support what you got going here.
Well, yes, and I skipped half your last question. So really, for promoters and sponsors, I've been so blessed that people typically just reach out, which supports a guy like me that would rather walk off the ledge than ask somebody for something. All these folks just want to be a part of it. it's tough for me to even call them to ask if they're back in for the following year. But I take full ownership that that's kind of making it about me, and that I'm placing judgment on them. Like they're going to be like, oh my gosh, somebody else trying to get in my pocket. It's really nothing to do with me, because all the money goes to the driver.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really, do you want to support the drivers? If you do, awesome. Thank you. If you don't, thanks anyway, maybe in the future. But how to do that. So promoters, they reach out. Typically I would know them and have a relationship already. I don't know if I've ever just let somebody be a part of it that I didn't know, just because I value the face of it. And
Yep.
I know not everybody shoots straight. I also know that not everybody that's in it always shoots straight. I know, including myself, like we're all human and nobody's perfect. So I think majority people try to do their best and try to do what's right, and it's always wrong for somebody, right? So I just try to be careful who I say yes to. So I try to get to know them a little bit if I don't already know them. And on the sponsor side of things, like there's just people that reach out, the sponsor outside of promotions. There's just people that reach out that I don't even know. And they're like, hey man, I love what you got going on and I want to support it. And I don't know if those people are going to come back the next year, or, it just, it's like they come out of the woodwork. And it really feels like when it doesn't work for somebody, maybe like a past sponsor, and they're like, hey, this year it's not going to work. Awesome. Thank you so much for your support. I can't thank you enough for the last whatever years of support.
Yep.
So then it's like crap, because that's where the purse comes from. It feels like somebody else comes out of the woodwork that I didn't expect, whether I knew them or not. And honestly, I don't know when that plateaus or stops, but year 5, those folks just keep on giving, and I just can't thank them enough.
Do you know how many sponsors are on this banner behind us?
No, I've been saying 70 plus. I don't know if it's 60 something or 80 something. Honestly, I don't count. And I just know that all the way from the person that really doesn't care if their name's even on there, that maybe came in at bronze, or the person that now we have elite, all the way up to elite. I think it's 5 tiers. They're all in it for different reasons, and it seems like they just enjoy being on that banner that does travel over to now 12 states.
Well, I'd be lying if I didn't always look for where my logo is on it.
And that's awesome, man, because that's great feedback, one for me, and 2 for George, as he continues to try to up his game on what that banner looks like. People, I've always when I give people a hard time as an announcer, I tell people those drivers, the sweetest sound in Dale Carnegie, I can't take credit for this, said to a person's ears is their name. And like, who doesn't watch a derby tape and they're sitting there watching themselves and they see a hit and the announcer says their name? It takes them back to that place. So you giving me that feedback about the banner just makes me proud to have your name on there and anybody else.
Well, it makes you realize it's more than just yourself. All these people are coming together to give back to the sport, give back to the drivers, and the money that you've given out has been, I would say, life-changing or sport-changing for a lot of folks that, they just needed that extra little bit to show them that they could do it, and then have that in their back pocket to move on to the next season.
Yeah, the first year, I think we raised, when I say raised, folks donated $27,900 or something. And then I think we were like in the 30s and then the 40s. And this past year, we started what's called the Freedom Ticket fundraiser. And that is really just me trying to increase the purse in doing that. And we were up like 60-ish thousand this year. It's grown every year. This year was the biggest growth, and it's because of that fundraiser.
So I guess, Mark, this would be a good transition into what is the Freedom Ticket ride that you're talking about?
It's a car that I built last year. So weird saying last year right now. Last year I teamed up with Derby Builds, Mark Klein, Luke Schaffner, and that crew, and we filmed it.
Mm-hmm.
And this year we're not doing that. I spent a week in Illinois to do that. And with the increased schedule, like I just don't have the time I can take from work. So this year I'm actually building it in my hometown with some friends. And so what that does is it raises money. The car, it's a turnkey car.
Mm-hmm. And they get to keep it.
They keep the car. It's signed up for Metal Mayhem, and they'll get a hotel, they'll get fuel money, whatnot. I really try to make it so they're going to have some investment, but they don't have much investment at all.
Mm-hmm.
Besides the $100 donation. The guy that won last year donated one time. He got one ticket. And last year, I think the overhead on the car was $25,000 that I spent building it,
Mm-hmm.
or folks. So when I say overhead, if somebody donated a gas pedal, I still
counted that as the
count
total.
the retail value of the experience all the way down to the hotel and the fuel.
Makes sense.
And so I think it was like a 24, 25, 26-ish, mid-$20,000 retail valued experience at River City Rampage. And once the expenses that were not donated, which was thousands of, it's not all donated,
Mm-hmm.
a good part, but not all. I think we cleared a $30,000 increase in the purse, which is how we got the 60. And every, I don't take none of that. It's a way to, one, me to do something that I love. You know the drill. We stay so busy, whether it's behind a camera or behind a mic or whatever that is in the sport. It's a way for me to get my hands dirty. Like, that's what I get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, it drives attention to the point series, so it's advertising. It's advertising for all those folks that donate parts, or they give me discounts on parts. And one lucky person, like, it was a mind mess for me last year, because when I talk about it, I don't talk about the Freedom car or I say my car,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm building it as if it is my car, and technically it is my car until I give it away. But giving that car away last year, that was an emotional roller coaster, but we had the best experience in giving that to Kurt Russell, who didn't have equipment like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was life-changing for him, and he had a great run at River City. He went and ran the car he had a great story. I had a great experience with him and his friends and family, that we had to get the car ready for the feature. Like, it was the whole experience.
He got more than just the car. He got Mark Elliott in the pits to help him get back out for the feature.
Oh, 100%. And he'll tell the story. I don't know what his story sounds like, but I know whenever he made the feature, it was handshakes and hugs. It was such an awesome experience, and his friends and family were so happy, and it was like time to party. And I was like, back your truck over here. It's time to work. And and I was trying, when that switch is flipped for me, I'm sure it's abrasive, but I was trying to be polite and say, I want you guys to have a good time. You guys can party all night, go home, sleep. I don't care. I'm going to work, because you earned based on your run the right to have 24 hours to work on your car, like the all night. So
Yep.
we're
working all night.
we're gonna work on it. And they did, man. They stayed up. It was great. And at 2:59 or whenever we had to be back for inspection for the feature, that we rolled in and got him a stick, and it was a great experience. So I look forward to transitioning to Metal Mayhem. Great friends with Taylor and Josh, and getting to work with Josh on a different level has been pretty interesting for me and fun. He's responsive, to the point, no nonsense. I'm not trying. I just want to know if I can or can't, so like, I just want to have a good car and somebody to have a good car. And we're going to give another one away this year and hopefully change somebody's life again, or somebody put it in winner's circle, which is what I'm really after.
Now, how does somebody go about getting into that?
They just reach out to my announcing page. Donations are $100, and I've had people buy 5 at a time, or just one, or repeat buyers, or the biggest question is, well, when are you going to draw? Well, I don't really know. Mayhem's not until September. I'd love to draw right now and find out, but at the same time, I'm putting all this investment of my time into doing this to raise money for all the drivers for the Unified Point Series. So like, I gotta keep my excitement reeled in to hurry up and give it away, or because people think I should give it away now. Like, I can't lose sight of that. We need to maximize on the experience to raise as much money as we can for the changes that we made. We're going to need more money.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie that doing the drawing at the expo surrounded by a whole bunch of our Derby family was pretty awesome. But on the same token, the winner wasn't there.
Yeah.
And that was a whole dynamic that I don't know if maybe you thought of it, but to me, it kind of caught me off guard. I really expected somebody to come like in tears, like ready to accept this awesome ride. And
yeah,
the guy wasn't there. And not that he had to be there. It's just kind of, never really even realized that.
It was weird. And it could have been that they were there, right? So there's that chance, and there's that idea in people's mind, like, well, I've already bought one, but I'm going to get another one because, like, I'm here. This is the place.
It's my last chance.
And so, yeah, we had to go start the show that night, the exhibition heats with the youth. And I'm literally messaging this guy, like, are you this guy? I had no idea who it was. And it turned out he lived 6 minutes from the track. It was just,
wow.
It was insane.
So are all the terms and everything the same? They're going to get the car. Do they get Mark Elliott?
Yeah. Well, yes, but it's just going to be a little different because River City, I was not an announcer. So first and foremost, I'm there for Taylor and the crew. I'm there to do a job. I don't know what that looks like yet. I'll probably work with Taylor and kind of see what he is cool with, because if he said, Mark, I'm not cool with you doing this, then I wouldn't, it's a partnership, and for them to let me even do it is just so huge for me. So I really need to learn more about what's gonna serve them well, and it's going to be awesome, man.
Well, I heard from a wise man, you can only win if you get a ticket. That's why my name came across your inbox and PayPal, because I'm like, you know what? I like that. I would love a chance of that ride. Even if it's just a donation, I'm still okay with it.
That would be an interesting story.
I would love to be here next year chatting about, hey, you remember when we went and got in the top 5 at Mayhem?
That's the excitement. When I said it's a mind mess for me, when we're drawing, I invested $100 in one of those tumblers. Like, I just wanted everything to be straight down the line. And
yep.
When my daughter pulled that chip out, reading that name, looking for the name on the list, I wasn't so sure I wasn't going to pass out, because if I called your name, or, I mean, for goodness sakes, my mom always buys a ticket, and that almost made me sick to even say that out loud, and it did last year too, because, like, one might think, well, that means Mark's going to run it. which that makes me want to throw up, because what does that look like, Taylor?
Right.
But then too, I ain't so sure she wouldn't, you know. I have no idea why she even buys a ticket.
I don't know. She seems like the kind of person who would probably like, yeah, I'm doing it.
She had never even sat in a car until I left Illinois and drove straight to our family Christmas, because everybody was sick at December. So
Yep.
when I got home, and the car on the trailer, you know, and she went out there and sat in it, and she'd been around cars my whole life. And when I cracked that throttle through the hood on the carburetor, I seen a look on her face I've never seen before. And until you're sitting in that car and you feel that fan try to suck the hair off your head, you know, when you get it, I ain't so sure she wouldn't. I ain't so sure she wouldn't run it herself. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think apart from the dollar signs, people also need to realize that there's no corners being cut on that car. It's got the best power plant, the best rear end,
as good as money.
As money can buy.
Yeah, everybody builds good stuff, and
exactly.
You know,
yep.
There's no rhyme or reason to this guy or that guy. Like, people just reach out, and to your point, it's built exactly like if I do have to drive the dang thing. I do not want to. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I think it's my car and I love the car like it's one of my kids.
Yep.
But that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it to help somebody else out. So
that's absolutely awesome. And so you've already sold a bunch of tickets, but again, people can reach out on your ME527 announcing Facebook, right?
Yep. Or just message me in Messenger.
Okay. Awesome. Well, this is as good a transition as any. This is kind of down in the weeds, but let's talk about some of the changes for 2024, because I think we've already kind of touched on a few of them, but I think some of it will make a little more sense when you get into some of the main structured things you've changed.
Yeah, sure. And I'll just try to hit it bullet. We've already hit on some of it. You know, I try to live that marginal gain life. I have this theory that you got to be careful what you change, because if things are going well, like, and you make the changes are too big, if things don't go so well after that, then you're the dumb guy that made the big change. So, like, when I said make some changes to try to break through that 5-year ceiling, like, we made some bold changes that I don't know how they're going to work. So it's kind of me putting us out there, and I'm going to do everything in my power to help them work. But I already mentioned that now, with taking away the stipulation that I have to be the announcer at the show, I have to be on site. 60 plus, that's double the show. So then,
and you're still taking people to join, right? Or are you locked in at this point?
It's not locked in. We got a great friend, an elite sponsor last night. That's a $2,500 promoter sponsor. There's only, maybe I could count on one hand how many elite promotion sponsors we have. That's 7 shows, whereas last year they were only allowed
2.
3. Was it 2?
I thought you only had 2.
Okay, so yeah, that was a big change. And so, like, when I talked about supporting their drivers, that was Austin and Jerry with Domination, who literally, this is fresh off the press. Their mindset was that we had a point series the last 2 years for our drivers, and it went well. Didn't have a lot of money to pay them.
Yeah, this is one they did themselves, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And they wanted to invest in their drivers in a way that gave their drivers an opportunity to do something even bigger than they could provide for them. So back to what I was saying, you know, if they've got 7 shows and they've got some regulars that are typically at the bottom, like, there's a good chance that now maybe we see some of those regulars at a Metal Mayhem or like out east at a Buried Alive, you know, who knows where, or the Preble County Fair, or, you know, whatever that looks like.
Yep. And that is one thing about the point series I found really pretty interesting, because I ran with up with the guys up in Kendallville this past year. Yeah. And that was just a local county fair that all of a sudden we got all these guys from Pennsylvania, a bunch of my friends that I got to share the track with, that I wouldn't probably have never otherwise had the opportunity if it wouldn't have been for the point series and then making the trip out to Adventure for that.
That's so humbling, man. I try not to take that for granted, that seeing people in places that we wouldn't normally see them. You know, it's not like I'm holding my collar out like, yep, that's because of me. It's not the furthest thing from that. It is so humbling to know that a guy like you's got a story like that because of what we're doing. I think I already mentioned their 7 highest scores, so we brushed on that a little bit. And again, I just want to repeat, I hope that take a guy like Adam Fouché, who builds the engine for our Freedom Ticket ride. We crossed paths with Adam a couple times last year and probably will this year. Now, seven total scores rather than having to run everywhere. A guy like that could be part of the conversation. You know, you really never know. One thing that bothered me is watching, let me think of a time. Traver Jones made the feature at Metal Mayhem, worked on his car like a slave. I mean, just put in the time.
Gave 110%.
And didn't place top 3. So he got his 2 registered driver bonus points and out. And so I changed, if you make the feature, you get the 2 points. It doesn't have to be that you make the feature and place top 3. And Heather Rittinger, I've seen it happen to her too, where it's like, man, you know, let's reward them for making the feature. So they got their 2 registered driver. Now they made the feature. Now they get 2 more. And then if the feature is if they place in the feature and it's 25 cars or more, now I've added a 2-point bonus for when there's just a big field. When you see cars lined down both sides, anybody that gets to the bottom of that had to do something right.
I really do like it when you take the money aspect out of it. These people are putting in, I mean, some of these you have 24 hours. You can work on your car all night. Some of them they lock them away, you know, but other shows you get to work on them all night. And there's guys that'll be out there, whether it's freezing cold, raining, they're working on that car to get the best car they can out there for the feature to put all the odds in their favor. And I love the fact that you're going to reward them for that.
Yeah, totally. The biggest change, those are just some of the smaller changes. And that's what I talk about. Like every year, I'm keeping track of issues throughout the year. Things that either I thought an aha moment or things that were an issue that we need to solve.
There's still issues. I mean,
yeah,
and I was there to witness a few of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure. So the biggest, and when I say bold change that we made, in our first 4 years, we funneled into one champion. And in doing that, my thought was never that was the magic plan. What I honestly envisioned in the beginning was seeing guys run stuff that they wouldn't normally run, like progressing through the sport.
Right. Yep.
What I learned in these 4 years is people just like what they like, and I like what I like. And as a manager outside of Demolition Derby, I hung my hat on saying, guys, I would never ask you to do something that I wouldn't want to do or that I wouldn't do.
Right.
And like I don't know if it was an aha moment or it just took me 4 years to really see it. But I started to see clearly that guys just like the space that they're in. It doesn't matter what, like they may go to another space to get a point, but they like Derby in the cars or trucks or whatever it is that they like the Derby. And I thought, man, why don't we break this into divisions? Because we already had a highest youth and a highest female.
Yeah.
So we keep that because I think there's something to, there's just not a lot of youth out there. So youth either have to, it's growing, but they either have to run in youth events or they have to bump up and run with adults. And then female, there's really not a lot of what as a kid, we called powder puff derbies.
Mm-hmm.
So the ladies, they just go and run with the men 90% of the time.
Right.
So I think I think it's awesome that women get out there and do what may be perceived as a man's sport, and they get right out there and it's not like it was when I was, not always like it was when I was little. It felt like they kind of took it easy on them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but now they're just out there banging. Like there's not a lot of taking easy going
No,
on.
they'll hit you just as hard. Absolutely.
Yeah. So definitely wanted to have a division geared straight towards the female, and then definitely to continue to support the growing future, the youth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get hung up on this fact that when I started, it was like big car, little car, and it's a dead horse. So I'm not going to spend any time on it, but it's like there's 100 different classes in today, and they're named 100 different things.
Mm-hmm.
So you really got to dive into the rules to even know if you can, like, what it is, because you can't go based off of the name pro stock or street stock, or because a lot of them might be the same, but they're calling them different names. So it's like, how can I simplify? And so it was like, right, wrong, or indifferent. This is what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I based it off of what first place pays, because it's my belief that for, let's say, full size, 2,500 to win, a solid 80% of the time is going to be motor swap, more what people would call pro class, or they're changing the rear ends, they're changing the engine, they're running aftermarket parts, protectors, whatever. And there's some stock classes that pay 25 or 100, but I'm saying I think it's a solid 80%.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one-off classes at like the Derby this weekend in Sturgis, typically pay 2,500 to win or 3,000. So full size and compact, I've got two classes that pay 2,500 or more to win for first. So any show, any of those 60 shows, any class at those shows that pays 2,500 or more to win will funnel in our full size, which is the Fouché Speed and Fab full size division, and our compact, which is the gray area demo parts compact division. And I'm always looking for new ways to let people get, like, to take advantage, to capitalize on the sponsorship. And I spent weeks trying to think of the right name. Mm-hmm. And like,
but it's as hard. It's
amateur, Bob.
It's as impossible because of we can't even figure out the naming convention.
Right.
Among the sport, stock means how much stock you weld into it, and not
right. So it's like, okay, well, why not let this be an opportunity for some sponsors? And my thought is that promoters, they get their name gets said all year long because of their shows.
Yeah.
Parts vendors, rarely. Like, I could do so much better, and I always want to do so much more. There wasn't a great way to say their name. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, okay, do we have, who's our highest supporting parts vendors? And then asking them, would you have interest in being an even bigger supporter? Because if your name's going to be the headline of a class, like, it's going to get said all year long. So those two classes, the Fouché and the gray area, that's the full size, and the compact for 2,500 or more to win classes. Mm-hmm. Just as I mentioned earlier. And just as in years past, 2,500 to 5,000, it's a 10-point win. 5,000 to 10,000, 15-point, and on up 10,000 or more, 20-point, double-point win. That's a language that the drivers know.
Yep.
Then for the two classes that pay less than 2,500 to win, same concept. And I don't know the numbers, but there's a 10-point, a 15-point, and a 20-point win. So a $2,000 win in a, let's say, a most wanted fine art class is going to be a double point win. Okay. And that's the Jeffy's Fab Farm Compacts, and that's the Impact Derby products full size. So
nice. Now, the first question that comes to mind to me is, do the drivers have to register for that specific bracket or that class, or does an entry into the unified points get you points in whichever bracket you happen to compete?
To answer your question, no. When they sign up, they're in for whatever they run in. I was on the fence about that, but I thought that this already was going to complicate things and make, like, there's only so much change you can make until people are just like, I don't understand any of that.
Yeah.
We may be there now. But so essentially, a guy like, let's just say our champion from 2023, Don Santel, typically we would see him in the Fouché Speed and Fab division.
Yep.
But let's say he was like, screw that, I liked running that minivan and I got pretty good at it. He actually won one.
Yep.
He may be part of the, like last year when we seen that long gooseneck with a pro type car and a van on it so many times, he may be in the running for the Jeffy's Fab Farm division championship, which is where a minivan.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you really got to think about. It's compact and full size.
Yep.
So whether it's a compact truck, a van, a car, it's compact and it's full size, whether a truck, a car, etc.
Yep.
So to answer your question, Alex, it's possible that somebody could have 2 rings this year, 2 championship rings from 2 different divisions.
So that leads to my next question is, I assume that the rule is still you can only score points from once in a show.
No.
Oh, is that okay? I'm curious here.
Yeah. So I changed that to 2.
Okay.
And I hope that's the right change. But the reason it was always 1 is because I thought if I didn't limit that, then a county, let's say a county fair person, a local, let's just say a local to me for fun's sake,
okay,
would run every class 10 minutes from their house and score a bunch of points. But a guy that drove 12 hours only brought 1 car and's only running 1 class. Like, I just wanted to limit that. What I've seen is that, man, what a good night for somebody. If you're able to win 2 different classes in one night at one show, because more times than none, I see people with 2 cars and they don't win with both of them.
Right. Yep.
That's a hot night. A hot night's 2 wins. So it's like, well, if it doesn't happen that often, even when people bring 2 cars, why not give them 2 chances this year?
So, but they're maxed at 2. So
yes,
you still can't show up and run 4 classes. You're going to take your top 2 highest.
Yep. You got it.
Okay. What other changes are there? Like, how many places? So in each one of those brackets, how far down are you rewarding the drivers?
So I haven't stamped that in stone yet. Okay. You and I in that conversation on the mountain both agreed that I was pushing for, I was like, Alex, it's top 3 because I'm only going to track the winner, the winners. But I think you were right giving me the perspective that having a top 10 there's a lot of people out there that just say, I'd like to be in the top 10. I'd like to be in the conversation. So the challenge with that in 6 divisions, because we didn't even mention the Smith Metalworks youth division or the Ruts Fab female division. That's 6 championship rings. That's 6 first place trophies. So now I got a conversation with Jordan Rutherford, what are we going to do for trophies? Because if we had a top 10 in every one, what would that look like? 60 trophies. Yeah,
you may have to scale back and do more prestige for the top 3 in each one of those, but maybe there's a financial incentive you can agree on or something. Yeah, to be determined. But
okay. definitely taken into consideration. I think there's something to a top 10, but I just have to be able to manage it. So I don't know. Maybe it's a top 5 or to be determined.
Fair enough. All right. What other things would be considered bigger changes for this year?
That's the bulk of it.
Okay.
There's a few rolling guideline changes. Just good segue to tell that if you're interested in signing up, or if you're interested in looking at the schedule, or you want to see what the guidelines are, you can go to www.527unifiedseries.com. That's www.527unifiedseries.com, and you can check out the guidelines. You know, there's the other marginal changes are just around like nipping some things in the bud. What I tip to highlight, what I don't want is for me to advertise that this is a Jeffy's Fab Farm compact class at this show. In the day of the show, the promoter changes the prize money.
Yep.
Whether it's out of goodwill or whether they're greasing somebody's opportunity to score in that, I don't care. That's not my 2 square foot of beach. But there is a rule in there, like whatever their page or whatever they've communicated to a week prior, I think it is. Like there is no changes.
I like that. It holds the promoters accountable.
It does, but it also, like, I don't just want to make that about like promoters, like I don't trust you, because it's not so much about that. It's more about if you were building a car for the Ruts Fab female division, or that's probably a bad example, any division that anybody could run, and you had been building that car for a few weeks and then the prize money changed. I would want you to know that at least a week before, so you could decide if you still came. But if you made that trip and that investment and got there and it changed the day of the show, and now your points were no longer going to go to that division that you had been building for, I'd be getting a butt chewing.
Yeah, understood.
So.
I agree with that. Because you're right, there are definitely promoters that, you know, let's say the grandstands sell out, they want to give it back to the drivers as a thank you for coming, but it doesn't count towards the point series. Anything they would add in addition is just out of their own graciousness.
Yeah, and that's great, because sometimes promoters do give back like that. We did really good at the gate, or there was a sponsor that stepped up and we're going to pay more money. That's all going to be great.
So now the other one that you haven't mentioned yet is Mad Dog. Are you still doing, or Hardest Hitter, Reaper, whatever word you want to use? Is that included in this year, or did you eliminate that? Because I could go both ways, to be fair.
I'm honestly losing sleep over this. I took it out, and I made the announcement, and I told Rich, our 2023 Mad Dog, there's so many times, all the way back to Sean Reese, that I saw those guys get the short end of the stick. Like they would travel somewhere and then there wasn't a Mad Dog, or they went ahead and just had one, and like then it didn't feel like a huge win.
And it's very subjective. I mean, you have to, the promotion crew is the ones making that decision.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Or they're like, Mark, well, we don't care, you pick. And I'm like, you kidding me? I was not watching for that. Like, I'm going to have a subjective pick.
Exactly.
Because it's whoever I watched. And so, like, I told them, until I can figure out a way that it's more fair for you guys, I just can't.
The only thing that comes to mind is, you know, maybe a small point bonus in not for this year. You've already laid out your guidelines, but maybe you get an extra 2 points if you got a Mad Dog.
Yeah, that's always an option. The reason I say I'm losing sleep, because, like, especially this year, and Alex, is this a segue into our top 10? If I go
it might as well. Yeah, let's just go right into it.
So with Rich Fazenbaker out of Gibbon Glade, Pennsylvania, he did secure that ring, our champion ring, for the Mad Dog in 2023. And to tell a guy like that, who put everything, like, he was not just 100% in, like, he told people at times, unless you're willing to sell your house, you might as well give up. Like, he was determined. He not only signed up, but he told everybody else, good luck stopping me from, and not in some conceited, cocky, it was literally like, I'll die on this hill.
Yeah, he knew what he was going to get.
He knew how many cars he had. He knew he would show up to every show. And then so with that kind of dedication, which is awesome, and I loved rewarding that, seeing him get the short end of the stick so many times and knowing that he had $1,000 in the trip, or it was just like, it ripped my guts out watching that and really not having anything to do with or being able to do anything about it. So, Rich, I don't have a count, but he ran more shows, I think, than any Mad Dog that we've ever had.
And I took a hit from him. He was no joke.
Yeah, you did. Where at in Indiana? Okay.
Yeah, that was a miserable experience on the track. I just something so simple taking me out, but yet I worked to get out on that track, so I was going to put on a show either way. He took advantage of the opportunity.
He is this dad, husband, bricklayer, nice guy that gives everybody everything, that they call old man because he's up there, and I don't know how old he is, but he's up there. He's been doing it a long time. When that green flag drops, something happens to him that it was special to watch. Even so much down to the look on his face when he came to Eaton, my hometown, Preble County. At that time, there was Ryan Rimley. He was in the conversation, and so like we've never had that where two Mad Dogs just go straight after each other.
Yeah.
And I don't know that was Ryan's plan, but it was his plan at about 10 seconds in when he saw what Rich was going to do, and they started getting it on, and I'm just sitting there watching like, what is happening? And at one time, Rich knocked him all the way out of the arena, and with Ryan's, we call it passion, adrenaline, whatever, survival, or I'm going to get you back. He's driving around outside of the track where there's fans. Then there's fans that are threatening him and wanting to fight him because, I mean, he almost drove up on a gooseneck trailer that had people on it. But I know that he was one track minded, that there's this other Mad Dog out there from PA, and he just hit me on my hometown like it was like, oh wow, what are we watching?
What have we created here?
It was special, man, and
wow.
He traveled alongside our 2022 champion JD Lorene and hooked up with him, and that then translated into many battles with our top two, Don Santel and Traver Jones, that because they had, it wasn't Rich so much that they were concerned about. It was JD who was up in the conversation for the big money. But watching him, I mean, he literally, I think he could be at the bottom. Like, I think I think he knows how to drive, but he goes out there to hit like,
he came to party. He was ready to just hammer.
Yeah. And so that's what he did. There was times we seen him all the way out of his seat, whether it was him or somebody else hit him, but he definitely got his hands dirty. And just getting to know him, meeting his wife, meeting his kids, watching them put a paint job contest together that they won at one of the Dead Man shows, the infamous Lexi Droz trophy that she gives away for that. It was an experience with him that I'll always cherish. I definitely enjoyed getting to know him.
Yeah, he went to a ton of events and was always if he wasn't the hardest hitter, Mad Dog, whatever word you want to use, he was always one of the contenders.
Yep,
absolutely. And
then we had, our highest placing youth again. Really our first time ever, we had a back-to-back champion, Cam Penwell, who I think's 12. but I feel like I've been saying he's 12 for a
For a
couple
while,
years.
yeah.
So like Cam doesn't age. But just getting to know him and kind of his personality, I'll never forget. He was walking around with Ryan Clark, Rick Clark's son, who's just up and coming and getting into the sport hard now. He said, Mark, I don't really know how to ask this. And I don't want to be disrespectful, but is the ring here? This was at the Turkey Derby.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, just that's how much it meant to him. And he did not want to upset me, but he really wanted to know if that ring was there, because it was down to him and Leyland Close out of PA.
Yep.
And it pretty much came down to if Leyland showed up, there was still a conversation. If he didn't, then it was going to be locked in. And Leyland didn't show up. So he knew at that point that he had it, and was now back-to-back 2 years in a row our youth champion. He just wanted to know if that ring was there, and being with his dad, Tony, who I've known and derbied with years, but really getting to know him better as now like a father and a supporter to Cam and Billy, Grandpa.
They had bigger smiles than I think than even Cam did.
Oh, it's been so cool to travel with that family.
Yeah.
To create memories and experiences and just to get to know them more. And Billy's so funny. He's pounding me with questions, but it's because he's got that derby brain that it just doesn't shut off. And he's always looking at like, how's this going to play out? What's next? And just like a derby driver. So it's so cool getting to know them.
Yeah. And he's one of those kids who's also out in the shop helping the build.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I would say that's true with all the youth.
Yeah, totally. And he also not only is our first back-to-back champion from year to year, he may have been the only person. He's definitely the first person that took advantage of that bonus that I gave last year, where I said if you win twice at one show, then you get an extra 2 points. He won twice in Stoneboro, PA.
Yep.
And so he was the first driver to ever take advantage of that. So such a good story for him. And wow, 12 years old. Like, what does that even mean? It's crazy.
And then what about I think the next one would be the highest placing female.
Well, let's table that, because
I'm good with that.
Our lady champion, she carved her way up through the top 10.
All right, we'll get there.
That's a double header. Yeah, but that does take us right to our top 10, Alex. And we just mentioned Cam, who's from Washington Courthouse, Ohio, 12 years old, back-to-back youth champion. Our 10th place driver is out of Carrollton, Ohio, and it's Tyler Dodd. And I don't know how well you know Tyler. I don't know him that well. He's our quietest person in the top 10. I called him the sleeper because he just kept showing up at different places, and
with different cars too. He all of a sudden had an old
full
size
pro class,
Yep.
mini cars. Tyler, I think they won the Joker Compacts at No Mercy, if I'm not mistaken. But then he was in a Dominator full size at Hardcore, like you said. Like, it was just like, I don't know if that was coincidence or he was actually chasing points. But he's another one that, Tyler, if you think you're going to be on this schedule a handful of times, you're crazy not to sign up, because typically he's a pretty smart driver. He usually gets down there to the bottom.
Yeah, he's definitely always in the bottom. And as you said, he's the quiet one, but he's always in the pits working, wrenching, doing something.
Yeah.
I've never seen him partying and doing any of that. He's just all derby.
All business. That's what I like.
Well, before that, though, I do want to give him some kudos, too, because I also saw him go to those other classes and have it not be successful.
Yeah.
Like, they just ripped him up, like just tore him up in some of those full-size heats, and it was hard to watch at times, but he still kept coming back anyways.
He did keep coming back, and where I said I don't know Tyler that well, I don't know what his class,
Yeah.
I don't know what he likes the most.
I would say I assume compacts, but I think that's just because where I've seen him be the most successful, but it might not even be his class, because just from my point of view, coming to that part of that region just only in the last few years, it could have been something completely different.
Yeah. And for him to even know how to build the full-size heavier cars, like that just doesn't happen overnight. So
No.
I'd say there's many layers to that onion that maybe in the future we'll get to keep peeling. It's like a to be continued.
All right.
9th place, Tyler Owens, which Tyler McIntosh is who he resides by on the Derby track.
Okay.
And he has a great level of respect for his stepdad, and that's somebody I've known for a long time. But Tyler, man, I've known him a while. I remember, I think, watching him run his first Derby. And he's a young kid. I don't know that he's 20 yet. I don't know how old he is, but he's a young kid to me. And he wrapped off a double point win at Butler County, who had a monster show.
Which that show is no joke.
Yeah, Jordan Rutherford and that crew continues to grow that show. And I'm not going to say it, but they've got some stuff that's going to roll out. It's just going to be even bigger this year.
Awesome.
And they have got a rock solid, which is one of our sponsors, Fairboard behind them that just continues to see the value in given to the drivers. And I think that's why people keep coming back there. And it's just a county anyway that's deep in the roots of Derby. So even if you don't get the out of towners, you're going to have it's literally there's cars in the trees.
Brothers junking brothers, cousins junking cousins.
But Tyler, he showed up out east. He showed up to Salina, but then didn't run. So he always told me he wanted to be a part of it and he wanted to be in the conversation. It just felt like, for whatever reason, whether it was life or whatever, doesn't matter to me, it felt like I would see him and then I wouldn't. And then I'd see him and then I wouldn't. So maybe his goal was to be top 10, and he achieved that. He's already talking about what 24 looks like. So he's another guy, man, that he's a smart driver. He's calculated, and typically he's getting close to the bottom. So unless something happens, like out at I think it was, I don't know if it was one of the derbies in Dunbar, and had a great car and the wheel fell off, first hit, boom, wheels or strut fell out or something. In the compact language, I look for him to be a force this year. I do.
Nice.
8th place, Braden Heap, DuQuoin, Illinois. So there was actually an announcement for a show in DuQuoin this year, an indoor show Top Notch Promotions is having. So that's a new one on the schedule.
Okay.
That I just realized in saying that's in Braden's hometown. Braden Heap, I see at Wicked shows. I see at Metal Mayhem, Spring Explosion. Every year I see this kid, and he's always at the bottom, always, and a lot of times winning. They do a lot of team derbies, and he's got a pretty rock solid team. And I just told him, dude, you're crazy if you don't sign up. You don't even have to care about it or even want your name in the conversation. It doesn't even have to be that. We're going to cross paths 6 or 7 times, unless you just stop derbying, because we do every year. And you're always at the bottom. So if you don't sign up, if you don't make that at last year was $100 investment, you're probably going to give away at least $1,000 at the end of the year. Somebody else is going to get it. So he signed up, and I was right. He did just that. He ran those shows. He won those shows. And then he even tried to come to the Turkey Derby. and had trailer trouble. Like, for whatever reason, it wasn't meant to be for him to be there.
Yep.
He was bringing a full-size truck there in that truck class at the Turkey Derby. Definitely a rowdy bunch.
Yeah.
He was going to run that, but he didn't make it to the track. And I think that was an opportunity for him to possibly have a place higher. So the level of dedication that he had in November, he was trying to up the ante.
See what he does. Better get registered. See what happens this year.
Yeah. Again, I don't know if he comes back. If he does, and he runs the shows that he typically runs, and now that we're going to be in his hometown, again, I feel like people like that, I feel like they're nuts if they don't.
Yep.
Because they're giving away money. Alex, we're headed up into some fun stuff here. 7th place, also our runner-up for the highest placing female, Heather Rittinger, out of Carnes City, PA.
Or Mrs. Psycho for anybody that is probably more familiar with the paint job on those cars.
Yes, seeing that, I was going to ask how well you knew her. So you do know Mrs. Psycho. And Mr. Psycho, I've known Rich for a long time. So to have them get interest and watch them travel the country, watch them travel to Michigan and run a co-pilot heat together and score points, and they had like a lakefront beach house that they kind of made a mini vacation. It was just so fun watching them and getting to know her a little bit, who's a pretty quiet person. Really just fascinated me. They're good people, and they've got the dedication. I mean, she may have ran more classes than anybody. She ran that full-size co-pilot, minivan, mini car, powder puff, both small and full, and full size at Metal Mayhem. And that, I mean, almost, I wouldn't say chokes me up, but that one scared me because they showed up to Metal Mayhem. They showed up to Metal Mayhem. Here they are, traveled a good ways from PA, and they were signed up for a co-pilot heat. It was a couples class.
Okay.
And they thought a bunch of couples. Well, there was another class that they called a fair class, like a county fair class, one and done. Whatever their thought process was, they changed. They didn't run that couples class. So, I don't know what that looked like to make that decision, because it could have been the right one, but it was not the
right one, unfortunately.
The fair class, what that is about 7 or 8 or 10 locals that were going to clobber knock anybody out there. So poor Heather, man.
She went for a ride, it sounds like.
Alex, she got hit as hard as I've seen anybody hit, and she was broadside. I seen it coming a mile away. There was nothing she could do but sit there and take it. Now, she'd already got hit before that, but this shot, he hit her in the passenger cage bars and rolled her like on impact, not went ahead and pushed her over.
Yeah.
Knocked her up on her side. I watched her, because of the view I had, I could see Heather, and I could see her like all the way to where her arm could have been in the dirt, and then back down. And I watched her trying to process it. I watched her clearly look shook up. I watched her, what felt like contemplating, what do I do?
Yeah.
All that within a split second. I watched that. And then I watched her try to keep going. I don't even know if she knew red flags were flying. We were stopping the Derby, because of how hard she got hit. And she immediately, like the visual, I seen her crouch over and I seen her grab her arm, which later we found out was broke and she had to have surgery.
Oh, geez.
She was not going to stop. When Josh Delar, the head official and head flagman for Derby Icons, when Josh went straight to her for safety concern, and they were telling her that she's like trying to check on her, telling her she's done whatever, she was not going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
They had to break her stick. Her arm was broke. Guess what was going to happen again?
She was just going to get hit again.
I mean, she was not in it. And I compared her to, like Rocky. I'm a huge fan of Rocky and always have been. It's my favorite movies. He did not have a quit. They could have killed him in that ring, and she was not going to quit. And I'm like, Heather, what were you thinking? But I can't say I would have done anything different. It just fascinated me that here's Heather, this lady that wants to be the highest placing female, and she's willing to die in that car to make it happen. I've just the utmost respect, and it, although it was a scary experience, it was a powerful one. It was.
I wish I would have been there to see that, just because I wish, just for the visual aspect. But you described it so good that I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
or being her husband standing on the sidelines, being
or the announcer who created it all, or I was like, I was down there with her, petting her back, and I, like, Melanie Reed showed up, like it was just a scary time, and all she wanted to do was keep going.
Yep. No quitting, Derby.
She ended up running with a cast later on in the season.
I did not see that. I definitely saw her run later, so that's why I'm putting the timeline together. I'm like, wait, no, I know I saw her run. Yeah. You said she broke her arm.
Yeah. Totally, man.
Man.
She's an animal. She is Mrs. Psycho.
She is Mrs. Psycho.
Yeah. But a lot of fun with them, and
total, great folks, as you said.
Total congrats to her on that. But that does bring up sixth place, Mr. Brady Morgan from Elkton, Maryland, who I had never seen an I Love MILF shirt before, and now I've seen about 150. Now I don't know if he can. Yeah, I don't think he can take credit, but he definitely set the stage for that shirt this summer.
Yeah, he's a character for sure. I saw he was on a couple different podcasts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that was fun.
He's somebody that TJ told me about. Remember when TJ had some derbies in Maryland outside of the one in Cumberland?
Yeah. Shoot, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. But yeah, I know what
doesn't so much
about.
Matter, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
He had a little thing. He had some shows, and Brady was one of the guys that caught his attention. So, like, for him to come out of that and then start traveling the country and do well and have some big wins, like, what a story for him and his family. And
he's a pretty young guy, isn't he?
I think. I don't know exactly how old he is, but he's definitely got a runway ahead of him. That's for sure. He had a big win in the Most Wanted Fine Art, I think, at Iron City. That was a big win for him. That's the class that you can run anything in, and he got a solid win in there. But I think, like, I don't know what his favorite was, but when he won I think it's called, like, the Dead Man Rumble, but it was the Minivan Rumble.
Yep.
At, I think, Buried Alive at the end of the year. Like, that was, I think, if I'm remembering right, he took some criticism because, no, I could be mixing them together. He ran a Camry maybe in the Most Wanted Fine Art, but anyhow, he was all in. He had what is that, a 3-day show? I felt like I seen him on the track 6 times.
Yep.
But watching him win that Rumble, like, I felt like that meant a lot to him outside of the point series. Like, that's a big event, something to be proud of. And to see him, his goal was to get in the top 5, and he fell short, but he owned it.
Yep.
And he's coming back.
What a story.
Yeah. Yeah. Total success story for him. Speaking of the top 5, and I know I told you let's table it, but holy crap, man. Melanie Reed, from the first time I watched her run, I've always said, you either have it or you don't, or it might not be for you. I've seen people that go out there and they're like, yeah, this ain't for me. I watched her the first time she ran, or maybe like in the beginning. I can't say 100% it's the first time, and I don't know where it was at. Matter of fact, I think it was Washington, PA. But I seen her get hit in ways that, man, woman, it didn't phase her.
Yeah.
She never got off that wheel. When I say on that wheel, like, you see people in there discombobulated and
smooth operator.
No,
is the best way I can describe it.
You get hit and you're in gear going the other way, trying to make sure that don't happen again. Definitely a smooth operator. That's a good way to put it. But Melanie, she had so many big nights on the series, man. She, like, one that sticks out to me, McKenna Saylor, who got 3rd. She was 3rd in the female highest female chase. McKenna was in the conversation at that time of Saline, Ohio. And Salina's you got to be careful going out to them county fairs, because there's a lot of territorial people.
Yep.
And they didn't have powder puff, so the ladies are running with the men. And McKenna, who, it was like a whim where her and her dad, Mark, they were like, let's go. Why not? They're part of the conversation. Let's go run here. They don't know anything about Saline, Ohio. And McKenna goes out there and wins. And she, at that time, to me, drove the best I'd ever seen her drive. I since, throughout the year, seen her drive even better at Stoneboro. But she wins. Now, that didn't make her ahead of Melanie, but it amped up the conversation.
I think it brought her to within like 1 point or something. It was darn close at that point.
So Melanie ran next, or in a heat later in the night, and went out there and won. And I'm like,
and took some licks, some abuse out in that heat. That was rough. If I remember, that's when she cut her leg or something.
I had to help her to the ambulance. Now, I didn't have to do crap, but I was down there and saw she was hurt, so her and I walked over to the ambulance. Steven, I don't think, was down there yet. Like, there was a lot going on, and I seen her leg bleeding. She had to get stitches that night. She said that happened as soon as the heat started. I think she was, again, that sacrifice. I was running one of Steven's cars, so, like, he gave up a car to let her, to make sure she had an opportunity to run.
But it wasn't set up the way that she was used to, so the bars are in different places.
Right.
And
she said that happened early, but she not only battled through being in somebody's hometown that ain't likely to let you score points, but or some folks, but she did that with that injury. And I felt like I knew at that point, like, man, this chick,
she means business.
If somebody's going to beat her, they're going to have to do more than this. And this is great. Like, to see people compete at that level, like, it never ceases to amaze me or fascinates me any less to see people do that great of things. It's nuts. But Melanie not only secured that highest placing female, but she also got in the top 5. So she stacked it up, and I know she has some fun with this. I'm sure she did, because, Steven is Steven. Was our 2021 champion. Yeah. He's no stranger to the winner's circle. And so there's always like this competition between them, and, they're poking at each other. And so when I sent them their checks, where she got the highest female and fifth. Her check was for more. We sent her a $5,000 check, and that was more than Steven's for getting fourth place. So I was like, yeah, rub that in.
You did that right. You slid that in the mail and walked away.
Yeah. So I don't know what kind of fun they had with that, but to be able to pay her that kind of money for achieving all that she did, it really meant a lot to us. That's for sure.
Well, and I do also want to comment, Steven was all in to supporting her too.
Yeah.
And, those are the kind of things that, again, like even Mrs. Psycho, just seeing your significant other rising to help you achieve something that maybe you didn't even think you could achieve. I mean, that's pretty cool.
She has definitely been cool to get to know. She talks about her Grammy a lot. And, I think her Grammy probably thinks she's nuts for doing what she does. But at the same time, probably so curiously watches, wow, how awesome. And so for them to get to share that, and I think I don't want to mess it up. They're PA, but I sent the trophies to Grammy's house so that there was that experience, and they got to open them. I mean,
that's cool.
Just the whole story for her was just really, and now she's in some kind of a Miss Motorama competition or something.
Yep.
So she's not that in your face, look at me at all. So
nope.
So far out of her comfort zone. So I just encourage her to just continue to take advantage of all the opportunities ahead for her as a driver.
Yep.
So very cool stuff. But that does bring up fourth place, and that is Steven, our 2021 champion. And
who always insists that he's not going to chase points.
Yeah.
Somehow.
All year long. All year long. And I think it was Stoneboro maybe, where it came down to Steven and JD, which are 2022 champion, and they battled it out. Is full size, and it was motor swap, and Steven was running a 6-cylinder or something, and I give him a hard time about his engine. I didn't know it was a 6-cylinder. I just said it sounded like a tractor, but he said that thing will run all night like that. So he got the win. They duked it out, and he got the win.
Yeah, because I think JD lost his transmission or something.
There's always, in a good battle like that, somebody's going to cut something's going to cut somebody short. But Steven won that. That was a big highlight for him. I know he got a double pointer out there at Butler County. He was part of that with Tyler McIntosh.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Team revved up. So
was Melanie. I remember that. They were on separate teams too.
Yeah.
That was
and she was running with Reese, Sean and Mariah and whoever else. But yeah, and she carved out a second place finish for her team. So that was big time points just for second. So that really boosted her in her chase. But Steven, another one, man, as long as we're crossing paths, he's going to be in the conversation.
Yep.
He really represents when I said there's people just like to run what they like to run. He runs all kind of different classes. His space, it feels like they build a few cars a week. I feel like they just like the Derby. Yep. And they'll derby those things, and they'll derby more next weekend and more next weekend, and they just run where in a higher class where there's more investment, you can't build that many cars and that many, so he's never told me that, but that's my story. I think he just derbies so much. He derbies all over he derbied outside of the point series all over the place. So they live for it. They live for it. That's for sure. But seeing him in the top 5, he was in a conversation for a third place ring, and it just didn't work out. So
I think he had a back injury that kind of made him make the smart decision of let's throttle back, support Melanie, and take care of yourself, because you got to nip that while you can. Yeah,
and I think he was still dealing with that all the way into October. So whatever he did, it messed him up a little bit.
He told me he should not have ran Dead Man, but he got his points anyways.
Again, what did we create? Yeah. Well, that brings up third place and our 2022. One day I'm not going to be able to reference these like this because I'm going to forget and I'm going to get them mixed up. But our 2022 champion, JD Lorraine, did earn third place. So got him another ring, just not one with a number 1 on it. JD out of Claysville, PA. 2-man, so that was different. He picked up a new 2-man partner, and I think they scored her one at No Mercy. Kendallville, you mentioned that. He was in that conversation. Gosh, Butler County, back-to-back wins at Preble County, my hometown. I think that really meant a lot to... I can always gauge what it means by how loud Mom cheers. So if it wasn't her giving me Diet Mountain Dews and Gatorades, or Jody Braden giving me Mountain Dews, I stayed hydrated this year, that's for sure. But I appreciate that stuff so much. But he had another solid year. He did not chase or register until after he ran Bash for Cash, because I think all his eggs were in that basket. And after that, he started showing up. And when he started showing up,
2-car trailer
with
Rich next door, ready to
Rich Fazenbaker. Like, he turned on the heat, and really made, we've seen things run away in the past at times in years. It was a conversation all the way down to the end, at minimum, of who's going to be second or third. But pretty late in the season, who's going to be first? Like, what's that going to look like? And he he definitely, we just haven't seen what we saw. We haven't seen where, like, we never saw what our top 2, we never saw people draw a line in the sand and say, I'm going to take you out. But what was also new, like, maybe not new, what I thought was fascinating, try to put this together, there was a clear roadblock for JD. And it didn't stop him from coming. He kept coming. Like, he never, maybe until the very last show. And I don't know why he didn't run the last show, but better than 95% of his chase, it didn't matter how hard that roadblock was. He kept coming back, and he kept doing well. So, like, he didn't just keep coming back, I'm in your face. I wasn't so sure that, like, because things could have happened where, let's say our top 2, something happened to them, or something happened at home where they, like, anything can happen, right? So, like, he kept coming back, and I wasn't so sure we wasn't going to have our first repeat champion.
I would agree with that. I mean, he came out, scored some big points right off at the beginning, if I remember. Once he got really into the chase. When
he got rolling, again, we never saw him until after the Bash for Cash is at the end of April. Or I'm sorry, May. So, like, all his eggs were in that basket, and then boom, we started seeing him. And like I said, you know, I wrapped off some of the wins he had. Like, to win back-to-back at Preble County, like, that's another one of those territorial places. So I know that meant a lot to him. Terry Abadi did that when he ran. Mason Stacy's been there and won. So, like, there's definitely been a lot of success that I've got to watch on my home turf that I just know it's not just another win. Like, that's a place where locals are, like, not on our watch.
Right.
So definitely cool to see that for him. He's got a lot going on too, with a house he's been redoing. He's made the announcement that he's going to be a dad, and now of a boy, and, like, there's a lot changing for him. One thing that never changes, and I just got to give her a shout out, is the support he gets from Mom. she's always there, whether I give her a hard time. Don't be being a redneck in the stands now. But like, you watch one of her videos, like you never know where she's what she's gonna say to somebody in the stands. But she has always been a good friend to me through the journey this year and years past. And he hooked it up for the Freedom Ticket ride this year when I went out there to buy a car this year in PA. The car was not what I thought it was. And so I was going to go back with an empty trailer, and him and Isaac, his co-pilot partner, after they ran on Saturday night, they got up with the Roosters because the show started at noon on Sunday, and they stripped the front half of a car out and brought me a 9802. So we switched from a Lincoln to a 9802 for the Freedom Ticket ride.
Wow.
And that was just him. He reached out to me at 1 a.m. I'm laying there in the hotel, and then we got to talking, and he brought a rust-free, Southern car, nicer car than I was going to buy. So definitely have appreciated really all his support and help and his
paying
success.
it forward to the next champions as well.
Yeah, for sure. So does that bring us to second place?
I think that brings us to second place.
Oh, man.
What a story.
Traver Jones. Traver will never get credit for what he does for the sport because he just doesn't talk about it. He helps so many, he's given. And I don't know that there's a harder worker out there. There's a lot of people that work hard. I've always hung my hat on saying that, I might get beat, but I'm not going to get outworked. He has got a lot going on with his business and crushing cars and whatnot, that he's just a hustler. He's a hustler, and he's a big voice in the sport where you don't see him a lot on social media, but when you do, there's a big response behind it. And having him sign up not only meant a lot to me because we've been friends for a long time, but having a big voice like that, and hoping for a good experience for him. I feel like it was a good experience, but he had some peaks and valleys, man. He had some times where heck with the series, friend to friend, I just was concerned about how low he got with dragging cars so many hours and maybe not getting a run, or what he felt like not a fair shake, to where it's okay, here's this powerful voice that is a registered driver. Now, it may not be to our advantage if he leaves wanting to burn it down, based on his experience. So I really felt for him, seeing him at his lows, but then at his highs, when he showed up to Midwest Massacre, an Ultimate Derby show, again, there's never picking the right class. You can pick a class, but Heather, they tried to pick the right class and she had darn near got killed. Well, Traver at Midwest Massacre, he had a hard car, and so he picked that hard class. Probably wasn't going to be 20 cars in it, and I don't know that there wasn't that many, but it was a class. And it was a bloodbath. They were trying to kill him, and I don't know why. I don't care, but I was concerned for him, and he flat out weathered the storm. It felt like he drove a flawless derby because they beat the piss out of him, and he gave it back when he could. But when it's coming from other directions, you can't always give it back and then risk taking it somewhere else, So that was a big night for him. Southern Illinois Showdown, but really the one that stands out the most for Traver, that it was the icing on the cake. I'm so glad and so thankful it ended like this for him, even though I'm sure he wanted to win. Everybody wants to win. When he came to the Turkey Derby, he was coming off of one of them lows, and from being out east and not getting a run, and he pretty much told me, just, I'm done. And I hated that for him because he works so hard all year. Like you said, if you've seen Santel, like you've seen Traver, just like you talked with JD and Rich, and we're talking about 2-car trailer. We're talking about the convoy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big investment, time, money, everything, resource investment for folks. And when he showed up at the Turkey Derby and running a banger class, like it was no walk in the park, I couldn't believe I was so happy that he actually showed up. But he had to score. He couldn't just pull on the track.
He needed to score.
He needed to score. He needed a third place. And watching him, it was a muddy track, so it's so easy to make mistakes. Just watching him, it felt like Derby for his life.
Mm-hmm.
What I later learned is transmission messed up as soon as he went out there. So he was like, that's where the extra calculation was coming from, and watching him navigate that car. And I'll never forget watching him. We're talking, there would have been a 2-point bonus class. It was more than 25 cars, but watching him work his way all the way down. And, you know, there was guys that got on him at like 5th or 6th place that had not touched him the whole time. It, like the Norris guys from Salina, their son was the youth national champion, Greg, and those folks.
Yep.
Great cars, great guys, great drivers, great equipment. Like, to be in the top 5 in that heat, it was down to the cream of the crop. And, you know, you don't know who's running with who, but you can watch and see the pecking order. It felt like he was with them guys, and when they jumped on him, I mean, I could have puked, because I thought, God, Traver,
you got it all the way down.
You got to weather this storm somehow, because they're a handful. And they got after him, and somehow, like, this does almost choke me up watching him get to that 3rd place. And I did not even know Don Santel was at the Derby. I don't know any, you know, I usually don't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, I looked across the track at the Turkey Derby. There's like a fence, just like in front of anywhere else in front of the grandstands, and the track's like down inside these concrete walls.
Yep.
And when that 4th place car broke their stick, Don Santel was not down here where Traver Jones was at. Don Santel was down here where the last car was still running that needed to not be running. Now, I don't know what he was just standing there. And when that guy broke I'll never forget this, because it was as cold as a Derby's ever been, and he's standing there in a long sleeve t-shirt and his toboggan with that stone cold look on his face, just watching that guy. You know he's on the clock. And when that guy broke his stick, I watched Don do this and walk off. And I can't even tell. It was crazy to see what it meant to his partner, let alone to Traver, who had been in those valleys and said, I'm done, but didn't. He came, and that 3rd place finish put him 1 point ahead of JD Lorraine and earned him another $5,000.
Wow. Never quit. That's the everything aligns and it forces you to it, but wow.
And typically in the past 2 years, we had did an award presentation at Buried Alive. It was not locked up then. So now I got Santel on site and Traver on site. They literally disappeared. Like, I had to go track them down at their truck, and I had the rings and I had my checkbook, and out of all these great sponsors, out of that sponsored money and what we raised with the Freedom Ticket Ride, I wrote Don a $25,000 check, and I wrote Traver a $10,000 check for second place, and gave them their rings, and we got to get a picture.
Nice.
Jody Braden was there to take a picture, a big part of the success of that team, and we got a picture with them with their rings. And I just told Trevor, I'm so proud of you, man. So proud of you for coming. Even if he didn't make it, I was already proud of him for showing up. Like, why not? So,
well, because we've had that conversation before. There's 1,001 reasons a Derby driver can come up with a reason they shouldn't go out on the track.
Yep. And if you watch, if you're a nerd and you watched my presentation at the expo last year about energy levels, level 1 energy, I'm getting screwed. It's not always poor me.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing ever goes right for me. In that sense, it's like, screw this crap. I've got screwed here. I've got screwed there. I don't need this.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the driver I was thinking about when I said he probably gave up $10,000 just not running around home because he was obligated to run this schedule if he was going to win it. And that's a good segue into first place, because the plan that they told me was that Trevor was going to be the champion. Like, he wanted to be the champion, and Butch was like, I'll run when I can and support you. Butch, I think, either changed jobs or had a different type of job where he was pretty open about, Mark, I just want to be in your top 10 every year. Again, like he's the only driver that's ever been in the top 10 every year. And he just wanted to be in the top 10 again. He I like what you do. Trevor, wants to go after it. So, but it's another example of like Derby, and you just don't know. Like,
right,
the cards played where Trevor had more valleys and Don had more peaks. Like, they were there. And Don, he's a winner. He's there to win, and for no other reason.
Yeah, and I mean, Kendallville comes to mind again. It was down to both them for first and second, and neither one just threw in the towel and said, okay, this is your points. No, they battled.
When I say, like, I just want to be clear, like, he's a winner, that's why he makes the sacrifice. I do know that about him, and he's not going to stop winning, like, to let, and I don't think Trevor would have wanted a championship like that, because he has that winning mindset too. So, like, the card just played where Santel just, like I said, he won his first minivan derby. He also led the charge in doing what I said we'd never had before. We've never had somebody draw the line in the sand and stop somebody. And there was multiple places, but I'm thinking about Proctorville. As soon as the heat started, Trevor and Butch went straight after JD and Rich. And they just derbied. And then that happened. It kept happening where it's like, in years past, we had JD and Steven neck and neck, but neither one of them ever drew the line and said, not on my watch.
Right.
And Don did that. And they got out and shook hands, and like, it was stone cold, and it was crazy to watch, because, I've got a job to sit up there and announce the whole Derby, not these 4 people trying to kill each other.
Right.
So,
but you can't help but keep watching it. I mean,
you can't help but keep watching, and you care about every one of them for different reasons. So it's not like it's a gut wrencher, man. And nobody had ever really did that and put me in that position, like, mentally, to watch. And so, like, it was wild. It was wild to watch. It was wild when it was getting ready to start, thinking what's going to happen. And I was just glad to see, handshakes. They don't got to be best friends, but, you go out there in Derby, who's the better man or woman, and then you shake hands and leave. Do people right on the track, and not to get on
leave
the
it on
soapbox.
leave it on the track.
Yep. So, but again, Don, we've just segued right into the champion conversation. Don has been the only driver to ever be in the top 10 every year. And he openly said that he wasn't going after it. But at some point, I think he realized, well, I kind of have to now, because it was either that or let JD catch him. So he continued to perform and deliver as always, and as advertised. And there's so many people that don't know him. And he did a podcast this year, and I think probably opened a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah, because I admit my times of interacting with Don has been when he's in derby mode.
Switch is flipped.
We're all guilty of that. When you're in derby mode, you're just laser focused on the task at hand. You might get a hi, how you doing? And then that's it.
That's it. That's it.
And then seeing a post about whether he gets sprinkles on his cupcake or not afterwards.
Or a butt chewing. But no, that, everybody has fun with that sprinkle stuff. And he told the story on that podcast.
Yeah, I thought that was a good pod. If anybody hasn't seen Scotty the Iceman's podcast with Don Santel, definitely check it out. I thought that opened my eyes for sure.
There's many layers to that onion, but there's one thing that is consistently his drive to win is second to none. And he kept winning. It wasn't even a win, but I'm fascinated, honestly. I think the right word is fascinated, whether on or off the track. He fascinates me. Midwest Massacre, he's in the conversation, he's running, it's like a one and done heat. Jody's out there, and there's a whole track full of cars, and something happened. I don't remember if this guy hit Don or if he hit Jody, but his switch flipped. And when his switch flips, he's either going to junk you or you're going to junk him. But he also is able, if he gets the better of you, he's able to click it back into that gear that says, I'm here to win. And that's just my perspective. He could have a whole different perspective on what's happening. I watched him get lit up in that, or not, when I say lit up, wound up. And I'm thinking, crap, Don, chill out. Flat out getting busy. And he got the better of this guy, and the car was junk after that. But he put it right down there at the bottom. Bob Whitaker won, I think, and Don got second, and Mad Dog. In his interview was funny because he told Sam Williams that he was no Mad Dog or something, but he got it and he earned it. But again, he got his first van win. He drew that line in the sand and said, I've learned enough about these vans. Not only can I protect myself now, but I can actually do well. So, I think that's, I can't speak for him, but there has to have been some enjoyment for him to starting something he knows nothing about and learn enough to be dangerous. And
I'd have to believe it.
Yeah. So, that was fun, to watch. But what takes the cake for him being our champion in 2023 is watching him win Metal Mayhem for the fourth time, because I know what that meant to him. He had not won it since, I think he won it in a couple suicides, his second and third time. And then suicides were banned. He gets to, I know that's not what he was after, but that's what happened.
Yep.
I don't know that he ran again. I don't know. So I'm not going to say, but to see him come back and win it, and to do it when it didn't lock the points up, for me, it locked it up.
Mhm.
At that point, that was a double point win. Watching him, that's a big weekend. There's a lot of work on the cars. It's heat and feature. It's 2-day. In that feature, everybody, people give it a hard time because it was a 3-hour feature. It was like watching the ballet, like watching it play out and watching the pecking order play out, like, and then it coming down to him and Bob Whitaker and them smacking off front to front, both front ends straight up it could not have been a better ending to his championship run than I could have wrote if I tried to write a story.
Yeah. Was that his last run in the points?
No, I think he had one more, and I think it's because it just wasn't, when I say locked, it's got to be mathematically impossible for me to do the presentation like we've done at Buried Alive.
I got you.
It's got to be locked.
Yep. There's
Otherwise,
absolutely no scenario in which this could be proven otherwise.
And it wasn't locked. Like the ideology of it happening, like Traver would have had to do all these crazy things and Don would have had to like fall off the face, but it's Derbian, and if it can happen, it will. So mentally for me though, like I'm thinking it's over. Like after having the year that he did and then to cap it off with a Medal Man win, it's just like, bravo, man. Wow. Like, and seeing a friend, I was one of the first people at his car on the track, and we've been friends for a long time. Here, I heard him in a space that I don't know that I've ever seen or heard him in. It was another layer to him for me. All he could talk about why he was still sitting in that car is, where's Bobby? Where's this person? Make sure they know, please thank them. And like, he was not, spraying the champagne or jumping around.
Like, look at me. This was all me.
Yeah. And for me, that's not I think it's really cool when I see people do that. Yeah. I've never personally felt like that after a win. I think I feel more like Don, like I'm wanting to sit in the car and like process a little bit.
Yep.
Before you get the cameras in your face. But all he could talk about and say in those quick, 30 seconds was like making sure how thankful people knew how thankful he was. Like when he says thank you to somebody, maybe they got him unhung or something, or maybe, but that's all he wanted to talk about. And it was just like, wow, man, could you be any more humble right now than it was an inspiration for me, watching it and just being in real time when I wanted to shake him and be like, you did it, man. You did it. Holy cow, you did it. So do you have, like, I could just go on and on about that. Do you have any questions or observations like of watching, like what led him from 2020 to now and he's our champion?
I think I think the big one is just stepping out of your comfort zone, for a lack of a better way to say it. Running a class you're not as familiar with, or a vehicle. I think I look at a lot of these guys who are the most successful, and they tend to find a vehicle that they feel the most comfortable with. They know every inch of it, and then they can use it to the best of their abilities. To venture out to something you know very little about, or maybe you don't feel comfortable in, you don't have that same confidence driving on the track, and to still rise to the occasion. I mean, that's a story in itself. And so, as you point out, I definitely saw him run lots of different vehicles than I ever did. The fact he showed up at that racetrack over in the Roaring Knob, like, oh my gosh, somebody drove farther than I did. And I felt I had a long drive, and then I was really humbled to realize how far they actually had to travel to get there, and that was just for the opportunity to possibly get some points.
Yeah, because the first year in 2020, he was clear that he would rather not be champion than to run. Like, he didn't want to run anything else. And I get that. I don't want to run anything else. I want to run what I like to build and run and that I'm comfortable in. And I think it's even more of a stretch in comfort zone. Like it would be a violation of my comfort zone to get in a Camry or a van, and like I know that you run some different classes, so I don't know that you can relate to that, but
I'm the YouTuber. Everybody wants me to try everything. So I gotta,
yeah.
I never have had a chance to fully refine a vehicle to the point where I have that level of expertise in my eyes with it.
Well, I definitely think there's something to that, and I'm glad you brought that up. That just kind of highlights and outlines his growth over these 4 years of like that willingness to do whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we've now broke it into these 6 divisions, it's like Scotty asked me, do I think that will lessen the competition for, like when I said they drew the line in the sand
Mm-hmm.
with guys from another space? And I said, like, I hope it enhances it, because if I'm going to draw a line in the sand, I'm a whole lot more confident in my space than in a space I'm not comfortable being in. So,
and I think the victory will be that much sweeter as well.
Yeah, amongst your peers. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. So, yeah, I mean, Alex, what a great season for Don Santel, with so many layers that I feel like people have just seen a few layers just in that podcast that have opened their mind to, like, we know these guys on the track or in the pits. We really don't know them until we get to know more about them, and whether that's good or bad.
When he kept taking his shirts off, the layer after layer, I'm like,
What the crap?
like this guy is way more of a character than I thought. And I mean that as absolutely no disrespect, because again, that's the reason with this podcast. I thought it would be more quick to get people to want to hop on the mic because we're at derbies together, but no, everybody's in derby mode.
Yeah.
The last thing they want is a change of just a distraction of some kind.
Yes, he is
All business.
But he's a character outside of that business, and Jody could tell so many funny stories, and he is a character, that's for sure.
But man, what a season, Mark. And,
Yep.
I want to take a moment here just to say thank you on behalf of all the drivers, promoters, sponsors for putting in all this effort to make this happen for everybody involved. Because I think a lot of it happens in a vacuum behind closed doors. Very few get to see the work and effort behind as you're jotting down names. And it's funny when the promoter's asking you who got third, and you're like, you guys were supposed to be telling me that. But again, just thank you for putting this forth for all the drivers and giving them this opportunity. And I don't take that lightly, that this is life-changing for some guys, whether even if it's not the money, it's just telling them that they can compete at that level. They can be successful if they put their mind to it, that they can achieve something that they didn't even think they could. So thank you.
Alex, man, thank you. That's deep, and you hit home with, it's like there's a level of competition inside them that they don't even know exists until you tap into it. And it's like the gift that keeps on giving year after year. I've said, I love to win. What's better than that is getting to watch other people have success, and especially when you get to know them and care about them, and see them overcome challenges,
right.
and persevere. And like, I try to do a halfway good job at capturing that and sharing it in the recap video or the recap post, and then it goes in Derby Life magazine, because like sometimes my words can't even do justice to the stuff that we see happen on the track, all because of a point. Not because of money, not because of bragging rights, because it's one more point. It's crazy.
Yep. They want that ring.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Alex. Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for taking time to, especially you being a little under the weather, to come down and do this each year. I look forward to it. It never gets old celebrating the success that those folks have.
I cannot wait to report on the stories from 2024. Because when we were sitting here a year ago, we were like, what's going to happen? What's the stories?
Yeah.
And we never could have predicted what happened. There's going to be some wild cards and things that are going to happen this year, and we're just going to take it in stride. And I can't wait to to go through that story.
Yeah. Well, our tagline this year for the shirts and the ring is break the chains.
Break the chains. I like it.
To get through that ceiling, that 5-year ceiling, and trying to make a bold change like that.
And change is very necessary. I mean, you and I talk business and other stuff outside of the Derby world in our personal lives and our jobs, and you got to change and adapt with the markets, the world. Take, for example, a musical artist that has lasted more than 10 years. They probably are playing different songs than they used to. So change is an inevitable thing, and I 100% believe you've been doing it right, which is each year we're going to make incremental changes. It's not going to be too off the cuff, and you give good reasons why. You know, because I think Derby guys are quick to say, why did you do this, or jump to conclusions. And I like the fact you're very clear and concise. You could have it all written out so there's no questions.
Yeah.
But change, I think change is necessary, and I really like the changes you've implemented. I'm curious to see how the dynamics are going to be shifted for this year.
Me too.
I think it'll be exciting.
Cool. Thanks, Alex.
All right. Thanks so much for having us. So where can people find more information, again, just for anybody that's still listening here at this point?
Yeah. One last time, our website, you can find a link on the announcing page, ME527 Announcing, or you can just go right to the website, www.527unifiedseries.com.
All right. Thank you so much for being on here. And thank you for you guys at home for listening to Derby Chat. If you're not watching the video, thank you so much for listening to our voices for however long this is. It was a great conversation as always, Mark. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex.